Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Josh Thomas, aka DFS Up North, back here with another DFS Army Chalk Donkey video. This week, we are going to be breaking down the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill Golf Club and Lodge, down just outside of Orlando. This is a great event. Obviously, Arnold Palmer's event. It's a pretty stacked field this week, at least compared to last week, and I'm really excited about it. Wanted to point out one thing. Welcome some of our new viewers here. This is entirely free this week. Typically, this is something that we keep behind our paywall, VIP only. And this week, we are opening it up for 24 hours to all of you out there to check it out and see if this is something that you want to be a part of. I could sit here. I could show you the $15,000 win last week from one of our subs. I could show you the guy who sent me a message today that said he turned a couple $100 into $2,000 last week over 4-day in Showdown. I'm not going to do that. The thing about DFS Army is I don't want to take credit for those wins, right? We provide you the tools, we teach you how to use them, and you guys will go out there and kill it. And that's something that as a coach here of the DFS Army that I'm super proud of. So this is just one of the pieces of content that we do every week, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. There's not a lot of frills here. This is hey, this is our information, and go out, kill it yourself. So let's get to it. All right, bring up my shared screen here. Chalk Donkey PGA GPP breakdown. I love Bay Hill. If you guys used to play Tiger Woods back in the day, Bay Hill was always on there. They had that number 6 with the big looping fairway. You could, if you really juiced up the power, you might be able to drive the par 5 and 1. That was I have like vivid memories of playing it on my PS2 down in my basement. Yeah, so I love this course. Tons of recognizable holes. I always loved watching, back in, a couple of years ago, watching Arnie in the fairways in his cart. So this is one of my favorite events of the year. The only way it could really get better this week is if our boy Tiger was playing. So get to the course a little bit here. Bay Hill Club and Lodge is a par 72 with 7,454 yards. So it's on the long side of courses here. We got Bermuda everywhere. So similar to last week, a little bit different strain of Bermuda. Fairways and rough will have, it's all Tiffway. I would imagine they don't necessarily say it, but we will see some ryegrass overseed, especially in the rough, which can make it a little bit thicker. But typically here, we're going to hit a ton of fairways. You're not going to see guys having too much trouble in the rough unless your name's Phil Mickelson. Arnold Palmer not designed by Arnold Palmer, but he bought this in the 70s and really has redone it. Really outside of the routing, pretty much all entirely him. It's a very if you've ever played an Arnold Palmer design, which many of us have because he's done a great job of building a lot of these accessible golf courses. It's the thing I love about this course is how well bunkered it is. There's not a ton of bunkers. There is a lot of water, not as much as last week, but just the placement of the bunkers here, you're going to notice this week how just when you watch, you just go, oh man, like that's guy hits a perfect shot and he just hits a little too far and it runs into the bunker, or you just missed the green and you're in the bunker and you're looking at double here. So I love kind of the diabolical nature of that. Tournament record -19, every Tiger Woods, Fred Couples. Going back to, I believe, 2006, the only 2 Americans who have won this event, Matt Every, Tiger Woods. So this is an event that is typically dominated by Europeans, and that's something that I think we need to make sure that we are looking at this week when we are building our lineups. So, Americans do well here, but for whatever reason, whether it's just kind of the course design, I think that the wind definitely plays a factor here a lot of years, that we get, these Europeans at the top of the leaderboard. As Molinari last year, McIlroy the year before. We'll look at that here in a second. This is an elevated tour event. It's also an invitational. So what that means is that there's only about 120-ish golfers in the field, and the winner here actually gets a 3-year exemption on tour, whereas a normal winner on the PGA Tour only gets a 2-year. So it's a little bit of an elevated event. Talking about Europeans, we do see a lot of European flags on the leaderboard, right? Molinari won last year with Fitzpatrick coming in second. Rory McIlroy, Mark Leishman, Jason Day, even a Party Marty Laird, Ernie Els, Vijay Singh, lots and lots of European winners outside of really Tiger Woods and Matt Every. This is like the one course that Matt Every's ever had success at. But we do have some Americans who've done well here too. Chappell, Hoffman, Kiz, Stenson is the lowest stroke or lowest score to par of anyone here in the last 5 years, and just hasn't come around with a win yet. And if you notice on the scroll on the bottom, my core plays for the week, typically what I do for our VIPs is I put out my 4 core plays, and it's not just the 4 best plays on the board, but it's 4 guys that that's my core that I'm going to build lineups around, and you can fit all 4 of them in a lineup easily. And with these 4, you get 7,450 left per player, and that leaves you some options. You want to go drop down to 6,800, play a cheaper guy down there, and maybe you can bump up somewhere else. So these are my core 4 guys this week. It's Rory, it's Stenson, Neesmith, and Mav McNeely. So a lot of those are my four guys that I'm going to be heavily invested in. So talk about a little bit of the winners here. We look at the whole layout from last year. The one thing that I want to point out here is that don't tilt too early, especially if your guys are starting on the front. The first 3 holes are fairly tough. Okay, then we get a nice stretch of birdie holes followed by 3 really tough finishing holes, and actually 8 and 9 are the 2 hardest holes on the course, and they played in the top 50 hardest holes last year. You look at some of the kind of key ranges for this week. A stat that I really like to look at is long par 3 scoring. So for me, in our database and our research station, which I'll show you here in a little bit, the anything over 200 yards is considered a long par 3. Well, all 4 of these holes, 7 played at 199, but for all intents and purposes, all 4 of these par 3s are over 200 yards. And we have actually an increase in the amount, and we'll see here in a second, that players hit 14% more approach shots from 200 plus yards here. So that's a really key stat for me. Being able to score on those par 3s is going to tell me that, hey, on these par 4s and 5s, when you have these long approach shots, then you're likely going to be able to score as well. So that's a key stat to look for. It played over par, just barely. Average score, around here, 72-ish. We look back at some of these winning totals. There's 18, but there's still 12, 19, 13, 13, 13 there for when Tiger's got like 1,000 wins here. There is a few more Eagles here, as we'll see, just barely above the average here. But the one thing here is we will see some pretty fast greens. The guys who played the Honda last week saw those greens creeping up in that 13, 14 range. So they should be used to playing some of these faster greens. It's one of the longer courses that players play on tour. Average showdown points, that's something that's interesting too. That tells me that there's not a lot of scoring here, that guys aren't going to make 6, 7, 8 birdies around here. Driving accuracy is very interesting. So it's 67%. That's telling me that guys are hitting the fairway a ton. But if we look and just slide over here a little bit, we see that driving distance. Okay, driving distance is 279. That's a little shorter. Quite a bit, 9 yards shorter or 8 yards shorter than the tour average of 287. So what that tells me is that guys are going to hit fairways a lot, but they're also going to be laying up, and that's likely why they're hitting so many fairways. So and then supporting that statement is that the 61% of greens in regulation. So they're in the fairway, they're further back, and it's harder to hit those greens from further away. That's why we see, again, these approach strokes 200 plus 14% more. Every other approach stroke distance is going to be under tour average. We talk about the bunkering here, right? Sand strokes per round. Almost a full more one more full stroke than the average tour event, and over almost a stroke and a half less rough strokes around than a normal tour event. So guys are going to be playing less out of the rough, more out of the fairway, and they're going to be in the bunker quite a bit because they're not hitting these greens at a very high clip. So some of my key takeaways just from doing my research here is that there's going to be lots of water. It's not as much water as last week. We're not talking about 16 out of 18 holes, but 8 holes are going to have water on them. The 18th is a very interesting one because it carries a 6% double bogey average. That's one of the highest on tour, and that tells me that guys coming in on 18 are really going for the green here and either coming up short and ending up in the water and making a big number, or even if you hit it long into the bunkers deep, you run the risk of hitting it out of that bunker onto the green, off the green, into the water. So water is definitely going to be big. Distance off the key is huge, but if you're going to be long, you want to be accurate too. Otherwise, you're better off just laying up. So guys that are going to be long and accurate, like Rory McIlroy, are going to be very successful here. Guys that can lay up and be accurate, or, you know, like Stenson can play that little 3-wood. That's also a big thing here. We talked about how it gets easier. The par 3s play over 300 yards, or 200 yards, 300 to be insane. Don't worry again at the beginning, but when you should worry is if that your golfer is not playing the par 5s at even or over par, or if you're even or under par. Okay, that is not, you got to be under par on these par 5s. Okay, the par 5s on average play about 1.5 strokes under par. If you're not making hay when the sun shines on those par 5s, you're going to be in trouble. And we talked a little bit about the fast greens. So the other thing is these are screenshots from our research station. All right. I'm going to just give you guys a quick tour of our research station and let you guys get a look at kind of what our VIPs get on a daily basis, or you know, this typically comes out on Tuesday or Monday night, and it's a pretty impressive set of data. Okay, so everything from tee times, DraftKings, we got the aggregated win odds, what the adjusted implied odds to win are, or top 10 or top 20, our projections for ownership, fantasy points, a value, which takes all that into play. We got course history, recent form, fantasy scoring stats, which we'll talk about here in a second, made cut percentage, driving distance, you know, and not only just recent, but long-term. So recent is like the last 15 events. Long-term is the last calendar year. So the last 365 days for these guys. Field rank splits, which I love, was something that I use all the time. You know, looking at, okay, over the last 15 events, total events, Rory's played in 4, but in those 4 events, he's beaten 97% of the field. Over the last 25, he's played 7, and he's beaten 94% of the field. That's insane. We also, you know, we break these things up for like Florida. You know, who plays well in Florida? Fleetwood crushes Florida. Rory crushes Florida. Par 72s. How often guys, you know, are finishing in the top 50% of the field? So top 25, top 10%. Those can help you make some decisions. Like if you got golfer A and golfer B, I feel pretty similarly about them, right? So, I mean, maybe I'm looking at Hideki and Tommy Fleetwood this week. I feel pretty similarly about them, but hey, Hideki finishes in the top 10%, you know, 48% of the time, while Fleetwood is 38% of the time. So, you know, maybe I'll go with Hideki there. So, and then you can slide over and see, you know, the strokes gained approach, strokes gained around the green, putting, last 10, 25, 50, Bermuda, all of that stuff. We do have the same thing for FanDuel, our showdown tools, which are going to show you how guys score per round, which is essential for me when I'm building showdown lineups. How often they score in the top 10% of showdown points, how often they get a bogey-free round, things like that. Fantasy scoring stats. So these are also a big part of what I do every week, or what we look at every week. So what we do is we find out, you know, how many DK points does Rory average on like a long par 3. Okay. So 0.7 and 0.6 FD points, you know, and then we can build what's called like a projected DK points per round, basically looking at, okay, there's 4 par 3s. This is how much Rory gains here. And now we can, you know, extrapolate that over all the 18 holes and see, you know, who is the best scorer. So for us this week, what we've done is we do that. We'll look at that here in a second when I get back into my PowerPoint, and we'll look at who are the top 10 scorers this week, because I think that's something that's a really important piece, at least for me, when I'm building my lineups. So if we look at those top 10 scores, the projected DK points per round, and also, you know, we can see, you know, Rory, Xander, Answer, and we can see over here is how many holes are we talking about? Like, what's the data set? So, you know, 900 is not a ton. You know, I'd like it to be more in this 1200 range, like a Brooks or a Morikawa, but you know, we're not talking about pulling 35 holes. Like, this is a pretty large sample size. So, you know, we look at our top 10 here. If you had all 10 of these guys in your lineups, or in your player pool, I would feel pretty happy about it if I was you. Rory obviously leads the way by a fairly decent margin, followed by Xander. Abraham Answer really pops up here as a guy who's going to score well at this course. So at 7,800, that makes a ton of sense. Colin Morikawa, Young guy, never played here, but done well. Brooks Koepka is interesting, right? He's always going to be a stat guy, but he's playing some poor golf, and he's really never done well here. Ricky Fowler had some success here. He's not playing great golf, over the last couple of weeks, but looks like he rates out pretty well. Bryson, Justin Rose, again, another guy that's not playing good golf, rates out pretty well. Might want to get involved. Scheffler, Hovland, we're going to talk about him in a little bit. We talked about those key stats, right? So you can sort our research station by, last 8, last 15, last 25. So looking at the last 15, if we just sort that, Rory, 97%, like with a bullet, the number one guy here. But then you got Decky, Tyrrell Hatton, Abe Answer, Bryson DeChambeau. Again, we look at guys back here. If you're playing pretty well and projected to score well and over the last 8 whatever weeks playing pretty well, that's a good sign. Matt McNeely, Matthew Neesmith, 2 guys I love this week, really popping there. Again, here we're talking about not huge greens, not small greens by any means, but what leads to scoring? Typically good iron play. Yeah, you can get hot with the putter, you can drop a bunch of bombs, but if you're getting it close to the hole, you're going to make birdies. So strokes gained approach over our last 25, something that I really like to look at. Henrik Stenson leading the way by a mile. And what I can see here is that over the last 25 rounds, he's at 1.03, and that last 50, 1.25. Okay. So that means that his baseline's right around 1. Well, over his last 10, it's 0.54. Likely that number is going to go back to the norm at some point, right? So maybe he hasn't been playing as great lately, and we're going to see that iron play bounce back to that sort of standard level, where Hideki is maybe the exact opposite, right? He's at 1.47, and he's likely to come back to his baseline at some point too. That's why I think it's important to look at stats sort of in this range of 10, 25, 50, because we get a pretty good idea of, okay, is somebody outperforming their baseline, or are they underperforming their baseline? And the other thing to look at, right? Oh, Christian Bazutnite. I mean, I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. He was a core play for me a couple weeks ago. But man, he looks great here. 0.97 strokes gain approach, but look how consistent he is. Well, that's because we're only talking about a sample size of 4 shot length rounds, right? That's not enough, right, for me. I know he's a good iron player. We can go dig into the European Tour stats, but personally, it's not enough for me to be like, oh, he's a good iron player. I got to find another reason to play him, is what I'm saying. Leishman, Finau, Colley. Bud Colley is interesting. He's not on my sheet right now, but he does have that AM tee time. We'll talk about the weather here in a second. But he is very interesting. Hovland, the guy we're going to talk about, crushing it with his irons, and again, do to come back to his baseline here. Matthew Neesmith, just a guy that I think you need about. I don't care what event it is. He is so good with his irons that you just need 5% every single week. This week I'm going to have like 35, but I don't care where he's playing. Like, you just need 5%. His iron play is so consistently good that at some point when his putter catches up, like, he's going to crush it. So definitely love him, Noxie. So we're going to talk about chalk donkeys here in a second. But the one thing that I wanted to point out before we move any further is we are going to have some wind issues this week, my friends. It is not looking like a very nice Thursday afternoon. So pull this out here and get this up, because we have an actual chance at having a good, having a real wave advantage, which typically, like, that's something that I never really believe in, but it's looking like it this week. And what I mean by that is that the guys that are going out in the morning on Thursday are likely to have a pretty big advantage on the guys that are going out in the afternoon. So if you've never used this site, this is windfinder.com, something that I use quite a bit. The closest windfinder station that I can find to Bay Hill is the Orlando airport. And basically the only people that use this are maybe pilots, surfers, and people who play daily fantasy golf. So what you can see here is it's basically going to tell you what the wind speed predictions are here, and then the gusts are going to be here. Okay, and if there's going to be any precipitation, it'll show up down here. It's also got the air temp. So what we're seeing is, and I'm assuming because this rain's coming in, we got a low front coming in, but the temperature is really picking up. And when the temperature picks up in the afternoon on Thursday, we're going to see that wind climb 16, 20. We're going to see gusts, okay, 25, 29, like pretty consistent high winds and gusts in the afternoon on Thursday. Friday looks about pretty steady all day. So these guys that are getting out there at 6:45, 7 a.m., they're going to be done around 11 o'clock here, noon. Like they might deal with some wind at the end of their round, but at the beginning of their round, like they're going to be in good shape. Oh, look at these ads on the side. I love that. But yeah, so we want to target guys who are going to be teeing off early in the AM on, or just anywhere in the AM on Thursday, because I think there's going to be a real advantage there. Now, if I see that, who else sees that? The rest of the industry, right? So we're going to see a lot of ownership pool on guys in the AM tee times. That's okay, right? We can eat that. But if you're building 150 lineups, essentially what I would do is I'd build about 120 lineups, maybe 110 that are just like strictly AM or mostly AM guys. All right. Then I would save those last 30 to 40 lineups and just hammer the afternoon guys. Okay. In our research, in our domination station, pretty easy. Just go through, click on those guys, have a tee sheet handy. And you can just say, okay, I want to build all my lineups with guys that are just teeing off in the afternoon. All right. And why would you want to do that? The weather looks like crap. Well, love the weather guys. Love my local weather guy. Love Mark, who's one of our a weather guy that we employ, but sometimes they're wrong, right? Just like I'm wrong about predicting who's going to play good golf this week. So, it's possible that this gets overblown, that maybe we don't see those gusts, that maybe the wind never gets above 18 miles an hour, or the opposite, that the wind starts earlier in the morning. And that, maybe the guys in the afternoon, maybe we see the wind pick up in the afternoon on Friday too. And those guys that play in the morning get crushed Friday afternoon. Seen it all happen before, right? So you can gain some huge leverage on the field by playing just those guys in the afternoon, because nobody's going to play them because it looks like it's going to be awful out. So definitely something that if you're building like 150 lineups, please do that. If you're building 20, keep 3, 4, do something like that with it. All right. Okay. Back to, we're going to start looking at some of the chalk donkeys now. So a chalk donkey, if you are not a DFSArmy VIP, a chalk donkey is essentially, let's see here. Anybody, for me, like over 10K, if you're going to be over 25% or in that 20 to 25% range, that's chalk donkey stats for me. Now, there are times to play a chalk donkey. Absolutely. But what you're doing by fading the chalk is you're just trying to create leverage on the field. So like, let's say I love Rory McIlroy this week. He's a core play for me. He's going to be 25% owned. But let's say that we were going to fade Rory McIlroy. Why do you do it? It's hard to find a statistical reason most of the time, but at 25% owned, like you're wiping out 25% of the field, right? 25% of the field, if Rory McIlroy struggles, misses the cut, 25% of the field has no chance at winning a GPP, right? So you got to think of it in like terms of like, I'm cutting out this part of the field, right? That's really the biggest reason to fade chalk. So for me, I keep that like 25%, 9K similar, anything over 20% is going to be chalk. 8K to 7.5 or like high 9K to 7.5K, we're looking 15 to 20%. Anything below 7.5K, if you're at 10%, like you're chalk. If you get down in the 7Ks, like 8, 9%, 6% even, that's areas that I'm likely probably staying away from, unless I've really made some strong stands at the top where I am looking to fade somebody. So in the format of this video every week is that I pick out, an above 9K chalk and an above 9K pivot, and then I pick an above 7.5K chalk and above 7.5K pivot. All right. Because typically we don't see a ton of chalk down below. If they do, then I bring it up in here usually, but it's not somewhere you can get a lot of leverage. So a guy that I'm looking at fading in above the 9K this week, and it hurts my heart because like if you know me, like Sung Jae winning last week was like so big for me. I've been a Sung Jae truther since day one, since he came off the KFT. And I said, who is this funky looking Asian kid that can play? Like, if you've been a DFSArmy member for more than a year and a half, like, you know that he has been a core play for me almost every single week. Same thing with Decky. Love the guy. He's just automatic. I don't know what it is about those slow backswings, but they're sexy. I love it. So it hurts me to talk about Decky this way, that I'm looking to fade him, but the guy has struggled here. Like, the stats, they look great, right? But we look at his course history: 33, 49, 45, 6, 21. Not awful, right? But when we're talking about, the third highest price golfer on the slate, 33 don't get it done. 49 don't get it done. 45 don't get it done. You have to go back to 2017, the second round. That's the last. So he's played here the last 12 rounds. He's broken 70 once, and that's the second round back in 2017. So we have 8 rounds in a row, right, where he has struggled where he hasn't broken 70. That's not going to get it done for me, right? He's playing great golf. I get it. His approach game's on fire. But again, we're looking at a lot of this stuff coming back to the baseline at some point. And I think this is maybe the week. He's not going to be super chalk, but at 18 to 22%, again, we're cutting a fifth of the field out. Like, that's what you got to do. All right. So my above 9K pivot, and this is a hard one for me because I've been fading Fowler pretty hard here the last couple of weeks. But I think that Ricky Fowler makes some sense here just on ownership alone, right? We know that he's got game. So 7 to 10% projected ownership. He could actually come in lower than that. But, for me, like, I like his iron game for this course. He's done pretty well here. He's a pretty significant discount from Hideki, and I don't think they're that much different of golfers, right? His approach game been okay. Off the tee, needs to get a little bit better. He's going through some sort of swing change, but this is Ricky. We know that right here, he can heat up with the putter. And if that happens, like, he's going to run away with this thing. He's looking at a top 5. He crushes these short par 4s. Pretty good long par 4 player or long par 3 player, decent long par 5, long par 4s. Like, he's going to score on these par 4s. So at 7 to 10% ownership to get a name brand like Ricky Fowler, who like, he's got major chops. And if he had played, maybe halfway decent golf over the last couple of weeks, he'd be over 10K. So I think we're getting value here with Ricky. It's hard to swallow at times, but I'm definitely in on Ricardo. So above 7.5K chalk. There's a lot of chalk in this range, but there are a lot of guys I like. Morikawa, love his game. Terrell Hatton, I think he's going to be great here. Answer's the one I'm a little iffy on, but we look back to those field ranks and stuff like, and the scoring, like, the guy makes a ton of sense. So the one guy that I am looking that is going to be pretty chalky above 7.5K, between that 7.5 to 9K range, that I'm actually, I don't know that I'm going to full fade here, but I'm likely to be under the GPP ownership, is Scotty Scheffler. All right. This is Scheffler's first time playing the Arnold Palmer. Even Morikawa's played here once as an AM. But he is the guy scores like crazy, but he just really gets it done with his driver. And we look at that. We look at the distance that, 279 is the average. Guys are going to have to lay up. Like, I think he's going to get himself in some trouble here trying to carry some of these bunkers. All right. He's not the world's greatest iron player. His approach game's not great. If he can't overpower a course, I'm not sure that he really gets it done. We look at those long par 3 scoring. It's only 144 holes. It's not great, but 100th in the field in long par 3 scoring. So that tells me again that the iron play is not that good. Like, he's really going to rely on his driver to get it done for him. And if he has any sort of trouble here, he's dead, right? He's playing on the afternoon. That's the other thing about Ricky. Okay. Ricky is in the afternoon. I don't love that. I think that's going to actually drive down his ownership more, though. So, I mean, again, you play 15%, you're going to be almost, you're probably going to be 2x the field on him. You play 25, you're going to looking at 3, 4, 4, 5x here. So that's something that I'm interested in. But again, Scheffler, afternoon, I think he's a late afternoon tee time. And so he's going to be playing in the heaviest winds. A Texas kid, he's probably pretty used to that. So maybe it's not as big of a bump as it is for somebody else, but at this sort of ownership, like a guy that just gets it done with the driver at a course that I don't think you need to really get it. Like Henrik Stenson is the leading scorer here over the last 5 years. I bet he's pulled like 4 drivers, in that entire time. So for me, Scheffler is going to be a pass. And the pivot is a guy that I think is exponentially more talented than Scheffler, but is going to be a third of the ownership, right? And that's Viktor Hovland. This is prime recency bias, right? So yes, the field is stronger here, but Hovland wins in Puerto Rico, has a hangover, and plays poorly at the Honda, which, no offense, incredibly hard. Brooks missed the cut. Ricky missed the cut. All these like stud golfers missed the cut there. So Hovland gets $1,000 off his salary on DK. He's going to be half the ownership that he was last week. And I just don't like, this is where you jump on, right, people? So I love Vic here. He rates out really well. He's top 10 in projected DK scoring. Another guy that gets it done off the tee, but he's got a really good approach game. And his approach game, again, is do some positive regression here. Around the green sucks, right? He's not a great bunker player. Stay out of the bunkers and you're fine. Okay. I think he's a decent putter. His putter, he's been on Bermuda a couple of weeks. He's good in the wind, obviously, won in Puerto Rico. I think this makes too much sense at $8,000. So I am going to be like pretty heavily invested in Hovland. My one concern, you could take this as a positive or a negative. So he's been working with Cowan, Pete Cowan, who is guy on his irons and his wedges, guys worked with Rory, guys worked with Brooks, all of these studs with their iron play. So, maybe they're making some changes and that hurts them a little this week, but for the most part, I think it's only going to help and hopefully get, this number back to this 0.75 that we saw early in the year. So I love Hovland. I think he makes a ton of sense here. We look at some of the value and punts. So this is from our cheat sheet. Okay. This over here is where I have all my notes that I talk about all these guys, right? So each week, again, put my core plays in. We have my main GPP plays, my GPP leverage plays, and then our value and our punt plays. And this is kind of our column where I talk about, again, where if you're expanding your player pool, obviously you need to play some of these cheaper guys to make some of the more expensive guys work. And if you're a DFSArmy VIP, this is what you get access to. All of my thoughts, typically I write up. I don't suggest that you play like a 50 player pool, right? But I'm going to give you my thoughts on a lot of guys just because, and then you can make your decisions on what I see. So, whether it's a guy that I think you should play 5% or 50%, I'm going to tell you what my exposure is going to be. And we'll go from there. This number right here is the Super Draft multiplier. And these are my confidence ratings for Super Draft. If you're not playing on Super Draft, like we've been crushing NBA, PGA, everything over there. So get involved on Super Draft. And we'll talk about that in a minute here when we talk about how to get a free month subscription to DFSArmy. Guys, I like, we talked a little bit about Scheffler. I do really like Kevin Na. I think that Alex Noren is a super interesting play here at 7,300. Francesco Molinari says his game's in the crapper, right? But won here last year. Can he get it done again? Bazoon height, we talked about him a little bit. I think Sebastian Munoz is way underpriced. Typically more of a guy that I target on par 70s, but I think he makes some sense here. Really like Adam Long and his approach game for this course. So lots of really interesting punts. So typically, talk about, hey, this is my content schedule. Research station, domination stations up on Tuesday. I have this video typically on Wednesday. It's Tuesday night. I'm filming right now. Coach's notes are up late Wednesday afternoon. And then every day we got showdown notes, right? So if you just wanted to become a DFSArmy VIP, and you wanted to get 20% off for life, so 20% off your membership for the entirety of it, you can use that code UpNorth right now. Go to DFSArmy, sign up, get that code in. It gets you 20% off your subscription for life. If you wanted to take us for a test drive, right? We are offering a free month right now. Okay. So let's pull that up here. And this is a fantastic deal. All right. So we are offering a free month if you subscribe to any of these 4 sites and create a first-time account. So if you don't have an account there and you sign up, then what you do is, so let's say that you're going to sign up on Thrive Fantasy. I just put a video out for Thrive. I love their format. There's overlay there. It's awesome. Okay, so let's say you sign up for Thrive. Use the code, okay, so you put in DFSArmy, and you make a deposit of at least $20, all right? You're going to get a double. They're gonna match you $20 on that deposit of 20. Okay, they're not. I wish they match you like 100 on 100, but they won't. But Thrive will add $20 to your account. Okay, which is awesome. No strings attached, no drip. Like you get that $20 to play right away, which is great. Then you're gonna get that welcome email. All right, you forward that email after you sign up to fffootballgeek@gmail.com, and then let us know the username on the site that you signed up or on the site. Right, then you're gonna get a deposit confirmation after you get that. After you deposit, right? Forward that to Geek as well. All right. After you do those 2 things, okay, we're going to send you an information about, hey, this is how you get your first month free. So 30 days free access to DFSArmy. The one thing that I love about DFSArmy is we cover everything. $50 a month. And we get, you get PGA, you get NASCAR, which is crushing. You get college basketball. We're getting into March Madness here, right? Razzle's been smashing there. You get NBA. Okay. Obviously, Keg and the boys has been crushing over there. We scroll down here on this. You see Bobby Wow 01 won $1 million in NFL this year. I think since he's won the $1 million, he's won like another $200,000. We just brought him on staff to help us out, right? So he's in there coaching with us now, talking about NBA, talking about MLB here coming up. So you get 30 days of DFSArmy for free just by signing up on another site. And again, there's a video. I'll link it at the end of this for Thrive Fantasy where I lay out how to play it on Thursday. Win yourself some money. There's some overlay. Win yourself some money, take it out, put it back on DraftKings. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You sign up, you get that free month, get in, join us at DFSArmy. Like I said, we are killing it. All right. And again, it's not that I'm killing, like I feel like I'm a pretty good DFS player, but we try to teach you how to be a profitable DFS player and not just throwing darts and not just, saying a hope and a prayer. I really believe in what we do here. And I wouldn't be trying to sell you on it if I didn't. I couldn't be prouder to be a coach here at DFSArmy, and it's I enjoy it. I love the golf sweat. I love, and I spend a lot of time on golf, and maybe I want to play NBA and I want to do other stuff. I know that if I just go in and look at what the other coaches are saying, like I'm going to be profitable because that's how good the guys are around here. So again, sign up for that free month. If that's not something you're interested in, you just want to be at 20% off for the rest of your life, use that code UpNorth. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in our coaching channels. And for you VIPs, I'm sorry. I know this, Trog, I know this was a little bit long for you, right? Typically I try to get this video done in 20 minutes, but we had lots of info to cover today. And I'm excited. I hope it was beneficial for you. Thanks.